Hello again, everybody. Today I want to take a little bit of time to talk about one of the really useful commands that we have in SPSS, which you don't see in many other types of software programs that aren't statistical analysis programs, and that's going to be the Recode command. Now, there are actually a couple of different Recode commands. The two ones that we often run into or that we're more likely to use are going to be my recode into different variables or recode into the same variables. And both of these commands, by the way, can be found under the transform heading. And you can see them both right here, recode into the same and recode into different variables. Now, both of these are going to basically restructure our data in the sense that we're going to be changing what values are referring to. So it's very important for us, first of all, to understand what the values are originally and make sure we document what the variables are going to be or stand for afterwards. Now, recode into the same variable is exactly what it suggests. It would write over my original data. But I'm the type of person who's always very hesitant about this, by the way. I don't really like to write over my original data, particularly if I'm not 100% sure I might not need the original coding again. In most situations, I'm much more likely to use that recode into a different variable. Now, looking at our data here, you can see that we've got a number of variables, and for the moment I'm going to go with a really simple example of the Recode command. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to look at the variable race. So let's take a quick look at the frequency distribution for that variable. So I've got to Analyze, Descriptive Statistics, Frequencies, and you can see I've actually already got the variable of race over. If I didn't, I could pull it right over there. And I'm simply going to say OK. Now note, because I haven't told or pressed any of the buttons through the statistic charts or formats command, the only thing that's checked off right now is my display frequency tables. If I simply say OK, all I'm going to get here is the frequency description of the data in terms of that variable of race. And you can see here we've only got 3 categories, white, black, and other. 73% of my sample is white. The other 27% is going to be made up of the black and the other respondents. Now, the point of this, or the reason I use this one as a very simple example, is you can already see that this data is pretty heavily weighted in terms of the white respondents. The question might become, if we're trying to find a pattern or if we're trying to understand the data, whether it might make more sense for us to treat this not as a white, black, and other, but instead simply treat it as maybe a white versus non-white variable. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to recode this variable into a brand new variable. So let's try that. Before we get to that, there is one thing we need to check. You can see here that what we have are the values for what each of the different possible responses there are for race. But what these aren't are the actual scores being used to code that value. So if I look at my variable view, and I click down here in the bottom left, I can see for race, if I look at the values, that 1 is equal to white, 2 is equal to black, and 3 is equal to other. Now that I know that, and let's remember that, I'm in a position where I can recode this variable. So if I go to transform, and again, I'm going to prefer to use the recode into different variable. And again, you're welcome to use recode into the same variable. The logic stays exactly the same. I'm going to say recode into different variable. And let me cancel out of that for just a second. Transform, recode into different variable. And I apologize, that was something from an earlier example. You can see that we have our list of variables on the left-hand side. I'm going to take that race variable, race of respondent, and I'm going to move it to the right hand. Now, notice what's a little bit different here as compared to some of our other SPSS commands, which is usually we pull things over, and at that point, the OK button is going to be an option for us to click. But you can see here right now, OK is grayed out. And maybe more interestingly, you can see where it says race, it's now saying race, which is the variable from the original data, is leading to a question mark. Now that question mark is referring to the new variable's name, and we haven't given it one. So let's start off by doing that. I'm going to simply say here race recode, which gives it a new output variable name. I'm not going to bother with a label. You can choose to if you want, and I'm simply going to click change here. And you can see race is now leading to race underscore recode. The old variable leads to the new variable. Once I've done that, you can see OK is still grayed out. And that's because while we've told it the name of the new variable, we actually haven't told it what to do to construct the new variable. So in order to do that, let's click on the old and new values. Now, again, the setup here is a little bit different than what we've seen before, but it's actually pretty straightforward if we take a moment to think about it. On the left-hand side are how we select or identify our old values. On the right-hand side in this top, what the new value is going to be. And then this part right here is actually going to refer to us what our coding scheme is. So in other words, what it looked like before and what it's going to look like now. So let's start off clicking over here in the top left. It says value. In this case, it means give it a single value. And I'm going to give it a value of 1, which you might recall from the data refers to the white respondents. And I'm going to tell the program the new value is also going to be equal to 1. In other words, keep the values the same. Once I've done that, by the way, note that once I put a value under the old and the new, the add button is now stopped being grayed out. So let's click that. And like I said before, this is actually telling us what the program is going to do. A value of 1 in the old variable is going to be equal to or lead to the value of 1 in the new variable. No surprises there. Now the second category was black. That was equal to 2. And I'm going to allow that to remain equal to 2. And again, I'm going to click add. So currently, white is going to be equal to the same value it was before. Black is equal to the same value as before. The difference is going to come when I talk about that other category. Now, instead of letting 3 be equal to 3, in which case I would end up with the new variable being exactly the same as the old, I'm going to actually tell the program to make it equal to 2. And what that's doing is taking a variable that had 3 categories and simplifying it down to having only 2 categories. In other words, we're going to have white, and then the other category is going to basically have to be referred to as non-white, because that's going to include black, Asian, all of the categories and other, all combined together into this one. Now, once I've done that, you can see that the continue command is a possibility here, so let's select that. And note, by the way, once I've given those instructions, the OK command has stopped being grayed out. With that in mind, I'm going to say OK here. And you can see that in our output file, we're given some syntax to understand exactly what the program has done. It's saying recoding the variable of race into a new variable of race recode. And then it's giving us the instructions that we told it. 1 is equal to 1, old to new. 2 is equal to 2, old to new. 3 is equal to 2, old to new. Now, let's see how that actually plays out. I'm going to minimize this. And you can see now we've got a brand new variable in our data file, the recoded race variable. If I wanted to, I could give it a label. I'm not going to worry about that right now. What I am going to do, which is a bit more important, is I'm going to give it a value label. And we said 1 was equal to white. And 2, I'm going to call in this case, is equal to non-white. Now, remember that this is an important thing for us to maintain. We could always go back for our other variables and look at the original General Social Survey file to see what the original scores were, or what some of the original values were. But we're creating a new variable here, which means that if we don't document this, it may be difficult for us to figure out later on what's going on. Now, this example here is really overly simplified. It's not a problem for us to figure out. But in terms of being efficient and in terms of documenting our work, it's important that we keep some records here. Now, let's check the math to make sure everything worked out the way we thought. I'm going to go to Analyze. I'm going to go to Descriptive Statistics. I'm going to go to Frequencies. And I've got my race of respondent variable here. And it's over here because we used it before. And then right down here at the bottom of my list of variables is my brand new race recode variable. And remember, the default for frequencies is always going to be to have the order the same as the order of the data file. Since it was my last variable created, that's why it's variable number 11, it's going to be the last one on the list here. I'm going to move this over. And I'm not going to bother with any statistics. I'm simply going to leave the display frequency table up, and I'm going to say OK. Now if I scroll down, I can see here a very simple set of instructions. You can see that the labels are the labels that we told the program. 1 is white, 2 is non-white. And by the way, I've purposely not used all uppercase, so make it very obvious what is something we created versus something what was in the general social survey. And you can see that the white for the original variable was 2100. It remains 2100 on the recoded variable. And then the 490 plus the 277, you can do the math on that very quickly, is going to equal that 767. So we haven't lost any data. Instead, what we have is a brand new variable with our modified race category. Now, I'm going to very quickly just give you another example here of the Recode command for when we're maybe not using categorical data. So I'm going to close this because we don't need this anymore. And by that, I mean the output file. And I'm going to recode again, but this time, let's actually do something a little bit more interesting. Let's think about the variable of age. So what I'm going to do very quickly here is I'm going to look at my variable of age. I'm going to reset this and move age over and simply say OK. Now you can see that with age, our value is going to range between 18 and, in this case, 89 or older, which is going to be referred to with a score of 89. You can also see, by the way, we're missing 10 cases. And that's going to be an important thing to talk about, and we'll see that in just a moment. But imagine instead of me wanting to use this, what if instead I wanted to be able to create sort of a younger adult, an older adult, and then kind of a everyone in between variable. In other words, taking a continuous variable and really recoding it so it becomes more of an ordinal variable. Well, in order to do that, I can use that same Recode command. So I'm going to go to transform. I'm going to go again to recode into a different variable. Now remember, since we haven't changed anything, it's retained my instructions from the last time I used this. Now, this isn't going to be helpful to me because I'm going with a different variable. So let's reset this, and it just sort of clears the deck for me. I'm going to move age over. And again, I'm going to give age a new variable name because I'm recoding it into a new one. I'm saying age cat. In this case, age is a categorical measure. I'm going to say change. Again, notice OK is not is still grayed out. I'm going to say old and new values. Now, I could, by the way, tell the program 18 is going to be equal to 1, 19 is going to be equal to 1, and so on. But this is going to get really tedious. So instead, what I might do is tell the program something different. I could give it a range of ages, where I might say 18 through 25 is equal to 1. And if I do that, I get something that looks like that. Also, by the way, I could also tell the program that the lowest value through 25 is going to be equal to 1. So I have a couple of different options there. I can also tell the program, I'm going to remove this real quick, that anything that was system missing before should continue to be system missing. And remember, we had 10 system missing cases, so I'm going to add that. Then I'm going to do exactly what I said a minute ago. I'm going to say, why don't we do lowest value through 25 is going to be equal to 1. I'm going to tell the program that 26 through 64 is going to be equal to 2. And then I'm going to tell the program that 65 through the highest is going to be equal to 3. And just very quickly, think about the logic here. We've taken, about 70 different possible categories, and we've broken into 3. 18 through 25, and I say 18 because I know from our earlier frequency table the lowest value is 18. 18 through 25 is equal to 1. Everyone in between is going to be 26 through 64 is equal to 2. And then 65 through the highest is going to be equal to 3. And of course, the system missing is still the system missing. And with that in mind, I'm going to say continue, and I'm going to say OK. And just like before, you can see that our Recode variable instruction is listed here at the bottom of the screen. I'm going to close this. And I'm going to take a look at the frequencies of both my old age and my new age. With that in mind, let's say OK. Now, it isn't quite so easy to compare them as we did before. Instead, what you can see is that the program has kept the values of 1, 2, and 3, which were our new categories, right? We told the program 18 through 25, 26 through 64, and so on. Now, what didn't work was the fact that our missing variables, we said we had 10 missing before, well, they disappeared. And in fact, if we did the math here, what's happened is the program's treated those as actually numeric. And you might say, well, why is it doing that? We told it not to treat missing differently. Well, because what's missing versus what we've coded as missing can be treated as two different things. And here's what I mean by that. I'm going to close this. And I'm simply going to go over here. And I'm going to take a look at how missing is being treated by my age variable. And you can see that values of 0, 98, and 99 are all considered missing. So what's happened is that the program has, to some extent, it believes that even though we've told it those values are missing, they still have values associated with them. They're not missing in the sense that they're a blank cell. Now, the reason I did it this way is to demonstrate that in a situation like this, we have to actually specify the fact that in this case, what those values are going to have to be. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to cancel out of this, and then remembering the values of 0, 98, and 99. I'm going to go to my age category, and it's wrong, so we don't want to keep that. So I'm going to delete that for now. And I'm going to go back to my transform into a different variable command. Now, I'm not going to have to start from scratch because a lot of the information I want to retain. So I'm just simply going to go back to old and new values, and you can see everything here is exactly the way we left it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to change a few things. First of all, let's remove that system missing command. And now this time, because I know that the program would accept a value of 0, lowest becomes an issue for us. So instead, what I'm going to tell the program is that 18 to 25 is now going to be my value of 1. And you can see it's changed the order because it does it from newest order is always added to the bottom. 18 through 25 is now equal to 1. And also remember, 98 and 99 were issues for us as well here. So let's go to that 65 through the highest. And you might remember that 89 was the highest valid value. So I'm going to simply change it to that. Now, what's going to happen to those 10 missing? Well, for the moment, they're going to end up being basically blank cells. And let's say continue. And then OK. Now, by the way, I could have turned around and made 0 equal to 0, 98 and 99 equal to 98, 99, and told the program again to treat those as missing. But for ease here, I'm just going to leave that alone. And so once again, we see our syntax command. I'm going to minimize this. You're going to see we've got a new age variable. I'm going to run my frequencies. I'm going to add my age category, and I'm going to say OK. Now notice right away at the top, we had 10 missing with the original. We continue to have 10 missing here. And sure enough, as I go down, we can see the 10 missing for both of them. Now, this isn't so easy as the earlier example where I could simply add them up real quick to double check the math, but I'm confident here that the program's doing the right thing. So instead of me having 70 different possible answers, I've created my own set of categories here of kind of an older, middle, and then elderly population. Now, do I always sort of cavalierly throw these categories around? Of course not. For research purposes, we'd want to make a point of why that is. But this is really just to demonstrate one of the benefits of using this type of command. Now let's close this. And I just want to end with one last sort of just demonstration. I'm going to go to transform, and I'm going to say recode into the same variable. And I know I said I don't normally use this, but you can see that the logic here is actually a lot simpler. instead of me having to name a new variable, I certainly don't, because we have no new variable to create. We're simply overwriting the old variable. And so all we would do is we would bring over, for example, my age variable. I would set up my commands, my conversions from the old file, and it would create or rewrite over that data once I went through the process. But the logic, the old to new, stays the same. The difference here is that it's not to a new variable, it's simply the new score. All right, well, I hope this helps folks work with and understand why that recode command becomes something really important for us to be aware of. If you have any questions, as always, please don't hesitate to contact me. Have a great day.